Charlotte Edwards, and I'm going to be presenting my presentation on effective communication today. Effective communication between practitioners and parents will benefit all parties involved: parents, guardians, practitioners themselves, and of course the children. The Department of Education agrees with this quote by Kelly 2015 by suggesting practitioners should address any learning and development needs in partnership with parents or carers and any relevant professionals. If practitioners have effective communication with parents, then the parents are going to be more likely to build a relationship with the practitioners, and then the practitioners are also going to be more easy to approach by the parent. So that means that the parent can discuss any issues that they have with the practitioner, and the practitioner will feel more at ease if they've got any concerns with the child, and it also allows the parent to know where their child's at and have the same shared goal as the practitioner, and then that will benefit the child as both the parent and the practitioner are both working towards the same goals. So I'm going to be looking at key principles of effective communication, and this is going to be linked to the Common Core. So I've said that 1.4 in the Common Core, the link into effective communication, that's all about building a repertoire with the children, young people and their families. And to me as an early years practitioner, this highlights the importance of building good bonds between yourself, the children, young people, their families, and it suggests that I should show respect and empathy towards them as an individual, and just to make sure that the bonds between them remain strong and consistent. 1.9, building a repertoire to use the most appropriate forms of communication. I'm going to be speaking about this principle in more detail a bit later on in the presentation, but the Children's Workforce Development Council expresses that it's paramount to discuss with a parent what form of communication works best for them, and then respect that and use it just so that they're able to communicate back to you. And 1.25, understanding the importance of building good relationships with children, young people and their parents and carers. As an EYP, I believe that this is really important for effective communication, because if you don't have good bonds and good trusting relationships with the parents, then they won't want to approach you, talk to you about issues that they might have. So my communication method I'm going to be talking about is the communication book, but this links to Bernson's theory of communication. He looks at the language people use during communicating, and he says they say that it can either be restricted or elaborated. So when I'm looking at the communication book, Bernson's theory supports me as it focuses on how practitioners speak and how they write in a particular way when communicating with a parent, and how they develop and adapt themselves to what audience they're talking to. The theories help me realise that I used a restricted code because that suggests that it's good for shared knowledge between parents. And Atherton acknowledges that Bernson's restricted code theory carries a social message of inclusion, which is really important when communicating with parents, so they feel included. And the way that my communication book, with some parents, they're being included because they're able to communicate back to us. So I've got a spider diagram of different methods that we use in my practice. So we use email. Sometimes we don't see parents often, so a way of getting messages across quickly is to email them. They probably have their phone on them, so the emails pop straight up on their phone. We do daily handovers in the morning when we let the children in, opportunity to exchange any information needed to. And then at the end of the day, we hand over to the parent about how the child's been. We do have a Facebook page, which is like a closed Facebook page, so the parents of the nursery, they're in the Facebook page, friends with it, and they can see updates. If you've chosen to give permission for your child to have pictures taken of being put on Facebook, we upload pictures of what we've been doing in the day so that they can see straight away. We give out newsletters. once a month just to say what's going on in our setting. Phone calls, if a child's had a bump or they're sick, we call them up, give them a quick call just to explain what's going on, if they need to come and pick them up. And then we have parents' evening. This is usually once a year just to talk about how the child's doing, their development needs, but as well we do like notes, so we have like a summative report every 12 weeks. After 12 weeks of observations, we write a summative report like summarising all the observations, how that child's doing, and then we give that to the parent to like have a read and sign, so it's always communicating how the child's developing. So I'm going to be focusing on a communication book. We use this in my setting quite regularly because I'm on a army base, so a lot of the time we don't see the parents. They either like have au pairs to drop the children off because of where they're working really long hours. They employ an au pair to pick the child up, take the child home. So usually we're handing over directly to the au pair. So the communication book is a really good way of communicating directly to the parent. They're still getting a handover themselves, just not face-to-face. But that links back to the Common Core 1.9, as this method of communication is, like, we agree that with the parent, and that's the best form of communication for the parent to have. So the advantages, I've said that an advantage can be that it's detailed, so it allows me as an early years practitioner to give a detailed description of the child's day, talk about what they've eaten, if they've had a sleep, when they've had their nappy changed, what they've enjoyed doing during the day. But this factor makes the communication effective as everything is written down and information can't get lost, whereas if I was using a face-to-face handover, sometimes handovers can be quite busy, and so it might mean that the handover is rushed and you might miss out a key piece of information which you'll need to actually hand over to the parent. I said any issues are written down on a hard copy. Again, that could be missed out face-to-face. So say like if your child has an accident, like we get the au pairs to sign the accident book and hand that over to the au pair, but then it also is written down so the parents know as well. So then they can't come back and say, well, you didn't tell me about that accident, because we've got a hard copy of it written down. And then as well, there's no handover rush. Handovers can be busy with parents all arriving at the same time. So some handovers can be affected as they may become quick and key information can get missed. If the handover is rushed, then all communication will be coming from the setting to the parent, and it's not going to be like a two-way communication, it's more going to be a one-way communication. So Wilson confirms that a barrier of open communication is a lack of opportunity for parents and families to have a voice, because the flow of communication tends to move from setting to family. So the communication book prevents a rushed handover for both the parent and practitioner, and they have something to refer back to. But if you have a face-to-face conversation, then it's more harder to refer back to that conversation. You don't have hard evidence to prove what you've been saying. As well as another advantage is that it keeps the parents in the loop, where our parents don't come to the setting very regularly and they just have the au pair come in. It still keeps them in the loop. It makes them feel valued, and it makes them feel valued because as a practitioner I've taken time out of my day to write in the communication book to let them know like what's going on. And the communication book promotes inclusive practice for the parents, as they're being informed as well as the au pair, and it allows them to feel connected with the practitioner and still have that relationship with them. Wilmot highlights that for inclusion to be successful, the child, parents and family must be at the centre of the process, practice and decision making, and by using the communication book it allows them to still be informed and involved and at the centre of their child's care. But both face-to-face handovers and the communication book, they keep that parent in the loop and allow inclusion. The disadvantages of a communication book is that it can be time consuming. It takes a while for me to write down detailed observations from the day, and as well, like I could be writing down in the communication book, and then something could happen. A child might hurt themselves, a child could be crying, and then so my main focus and the duty of care I have is to look after that child. So that means I stop writing in the book and then it just prolongs the process of writing in the communication book. But in comparison, face-to-face handovers can be easier as the information can be passed on there and there, they're prompt. However, it doesn't mean that face-to-face communication and handovers are more effective and less time-consuming than a communication book, because I find sometimes when I'm handing over to a parent, the doorbell could ring and I might be the only one that's available to open the door, so that means that I have to stop my handover to then open the door, and that prolongs that handover. I said if no response, did the parent see it? So at the moment I've had a situation where I've done a child's 2-year check, I've put it in their communication book asking the parent to sign it, and they've written back saying, yeah, they've seen it, they'll return it, but it's like 3 weeks later now and they still haven't returned it. And if I did a face-to-face communication with them and handover, I'd be able to do it there and then, be like, can you read this, can you sign it, and they know, then I know it's been all done, whereas this has prolonged the whole situation. And as well, important information can't be dealt with as well. So I've done a few improvements for the future based on my disadvantages. I've said that calling parents and guardians if there's any serious accidents or incidents that they need to know of. We do usually do it like bumped heads, but it's just me more prompt on calling them, just so that they're aware before the child goes home. So if there's been an incident of a biting and the bite's quite bad, they know before the child goes home and they see it. I said emailing, like that's important. We can just send it straight to the parent directly. They can see it whenever. And I've given you all a template from the communication sheets. We use them in Baby Room to communicate to the parents how the baby's been. So in my preschool, like an improvement could be that we use a template like that, just so it's quicker for us as a practitioner to fill out. But also there's a comment box, so it allows two-way communication. The parent can write in that comment box at the end of the day, and then we can see it the next day. And then I've said use Tapestry. We as a nursery are looking at going on to Tapestry, and that's really important. Like, parents can access it anywhere, but as well in my setting where we're on an army base, we have to have parents that are away, so they can access it. If they're in another country, they can access it from the other side of the world. They can see observations, see how their child's getting on, they can comment on it, like it, and they're still being kept in the loop. In conclusion, I believe that for my practice, like a communication book is the most suitable form of communication. I think that because it allows the parents who rarely visit the setting to feel included, it prevents information from being forgotten, and most importantly, it allows two-way communication between me and the parent. Reflecting on Bernstein's theory of communication, I've concluded that I use this theory when writing in the communication book, as I develop my language appropriately so that the parents can understand. I don't use jargon which they won't understand at all. The method of the communication book is used in my setting as it's agreed with the parents, is the most suitable for them based on their drop-off and pick-up situation. And Spring points out that Bernstein's restricted code is based on background knowledge and sharing and understanding, which I gained from my parents when agreeing on the communication book.